Wants to discuss question papers today? We'll do that. Okay. The very first question is question 101, match the sanctuary with its state. बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व सेंचुरीज ये डेफिनेटली पूछे जाते हैं. मोर इन कॉमन वो पूछे जाते हैं जो रिसेंटली न्यूज में हुए हो. इफ कोई रिसेंटली डिक्लेयर किया गया हो कि ये वाइल्ड लाइफ सेंचुरी है या टाइगर रिजर्व है या एलिफेंट रिजर्व है, और इट हैज बीन इन न्यूज फॉर सम अदर रीजन लाइक फॉरेस्ट फायर और सम स्पेशल स्टेटस दैट इट हैज एक्वायर्ड. लाइक समटाइम्स देयर आर बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व्स एंड देयर आर्म्स आर साइज्ड टुगेदर. सो ऐसा कोई स्पेशल स्टेटस अगर उसका होगा तो वो सेंचुरी को प्लीज ध्यान दीजिएगा. ओके. The first one, match the sanctuaries with its state: Sharavati Valley, Satkosia Gorge, Pirotan Island, and Bhagwan Mahavir. And your states are Gujarat, Goa, Odisha, Karnataka. चलो कौन सा पता है वो बताइए, बिकॉज आपको सब कुछ नहीं पता होगा, बट यू विल हैव टू जस्ट विंग इट. सो टेल मी हाउ विल डू दैट. शरावती वैली कहाँ सुना है? शरावती रिवर का नाम कहाँ सुना है आपने? जोग फॉल्स. उसके वो चार ये आते हैं, राजा रानी रोर और रॉकेट, है ना, कर्नाटका में है. वेरी फेमसली जोग फॉल्स इन कर्नाटका. एंड वी नो कि शरावती वैली डेफिनेटली कर्नाटका का है. ओके. सतकोसिया ओडिशा. वेरी गुड. सतकोसिया गॉज. द रीजन व्हाई इट इज कॉल्ड एज सतकोसिया इज बिकॉज वो महानदी जो है वो माउंटेन्स के बीच में से एक गॉज बनाती है, एंड द डिस्टेंस, वो जो विड्थ है उसका वहां पे, दैट इज अज्यूम टू बी और सपोज टू बी 7 कोस. सो सतकोसिया ऐसे. ओके. सो दैट इज ओडिशा. पिरोतान आइलैंड गुजरात में आता है ये. इट इज वन ऑफ दोज वेरी फ्यू मरीन सेंचुरीज दैट वी हैव, जो ना ये यूजुअली जब लो टाइड होती है तो वो सारा पानी समंदर के अंदर चला जाता है. ओके. एंड व्हाट इज एक्सपोज्ड इज मोस्ट ऑफ द लो लाइंग लैंड ओवर देयर. ओके. तो उसमें वो आपको सारे छोटे छोटे मरीन ऑर्गेनिजम्स वगैरह फिर भी दिखाई देते हैं, बिकॉज बहुत कम होता है ना पानी का लेवल, तो बहुत क्लियरली दिखाई देते हैं. इस लैंड ऐसे दो ही आइलैंड्स है वहाँ गुजरात में, जहाँ कच्छ के पास, जहाँ पे हम ये सब देख सकते हैं. And Pirotan Island is one of those. Okay, very special sanctuary, very special place to go. Okay, so we are going. Pirotan is going to be Gujarat. Bhagwan Mahavir, Goa, obviously. So we are saying ये इसलिए वो वहाँ पे दूध सागर फॉल्स है, फेमस है, टाइगर्स वाइगर्स है, तो भी यार टाइगर्स नहीं है, पर वी नो भगवान महावीर. ओके. फेमस है वो सेंचुरी वहाँ पे. तो कैसा ऑप्शन होना चाहिए हमारा? 4-3-1-2, ये वाला. 4-3-1 ऑप्शन. ओके. ठीक है. Which organization publishes the worldwide list of endangered species? IUCN, obviously IUCN. Okay. उसका एक रेड लिस्ट आता है IUCN का. वी गेट अ रेड लिस्ट ओवर दैट. उसमें ना मल्टीपल स्पीसीज होती है. सो एक्सटिंक्ट तो खैर वो जो एक्सटिंक्ट हो गए हैं वो वाले होते हैं, एंड देन ऑब्वियसली देयर आर दोज जो आप बोलते हो कि नियर थ्रेटेंड है, वेरी क्लोज टू एक्सटिंक्शन एंड ऑल. वेट कर सकते हैं. Here you are. Those are those categories. Extinct and extinct in the wild से दो categories होते हैं. You understand ना? Wild में animals exist कर सकते हैं and captivity में exist कर सकते हैं. Did everybody manage to get some way or another to that Zoom thing? No? अपना वॉल्यूम कम कर दीजिएगा, बंद कर दीजिएगा जब आप ज्वाइन करें तो। Anyways, your categories are going to be extinct or extinct in the wild. Sometimes animals are even bred in captivity, especially if you feel that conditions in the wild are not suitable or adaptable to them anymore. And if you wish to really preserve the species, अगर species बहुत ही near extinction वगैरह होगी तो then there are three categories जो बहुत high risk होते हैं, critically endangered, endangered and vulnerable. Okay, तो वो एक कैटेगरी होता है critically endangered, endangered and vulnerable. Then next category होती है near threatened, की meaning they are going to be, they are very qualified to being threatened very soon. एंड एक लीस्ट कंसर्न होता है, लाइक वी वुड से माइस, क्रोज वगैरह हर जगह मिल जाते हैं, तो वो दे आर लीस्ट कंसर्न. एंड देन देर आर टू कैटेगरीज, एक जिसमें डेटा डेफिशिएंट होता है, यू डोंट हैव इनफ डेटा टू से कि व्हाट इज हैपनिंग, और लाइक यू डोंट हैव इनफ डेटा ऑन द स्पीसीज टू काउंट एंड से कि वो एक्सटिंक्ट है या ठीक कर रहे हैं या नहीं. एंड एक नॉट इवेल्युएटेड, मीनिंग जरूरत ही नहीं पड़ी आपको उसको इवेल्युएट करने की. ओके, यू आर लुकिंग एट दोस थिंग्स. फॉर दिस पर्टिकुलर कैटेगरी, वॉच आउट फॉर योर करंट अफेयर्स न्यूज. आपको हमेशा उसमें पता चलता है कि आईयूसीएन जब ये लिस्ट पब्लिश करता है तो इंडिया के कुछ ना कुछ स्पीशीज तो डेफिनेटली ऐसे होते हैं. ओके, तो यू बेटर चेक दैट आउट कि कौन सी स्पीसीज इसमें आ जाती है करके. ओके, एंड दैट इज गोइंग टू बी योर आंसर. I mean, that is going to be the thing that UPSC is going to focus on. Okay, next question. In which country is the Mediterranean type of biome found? Mediterranean biome की स्पेशलिटी क्या होती है? आपके ऑप्शन है चिले, केन्या, अर्जेंटीना एंड बोलिविया. ओके, अब चिले, वेरी गुड, वेरी एब्सोल्युटली करेक्ट. चिले का फंडा क्या है कि ये रहा आपका चिले यहाँ पर. ओके, यू आर टॉकिंग ऑफ दिस कंट्री, हाँ ये वाली कंट्री की बात कर रहे हैं. वेस्टर्न कोस्ट पे, साउथ अमेरिका का जो वेस्टर्न कोस्ट है उसका ऑलमोस्ट आधा जो है वो पूरा ये चिले कवर करता है. ओके, नाउ द थिंग इज कि सिंस ये लैटिट्यूडनल एक्सटेंट इसका बहुत है, लॉन्जिट्यूडनल क्लियरली नहीं है, पतला सा है चिले, है ना, इट्स वेरी नैरो, बट वो लंबा बहुत है. ओके, तो आपको मल्टीपल क्लाइमेट्स मिल जाएंगे, यही चिले की खासियत है. यू विल फाइंड मल्टीपल ऑफ दीज क्लाइमेट्स ओवर हियर. द थिंग विद चिले इज कि आपको बेसिकली अगर आपको यू कांट हैव मेडिटेरेनियन बायोम इन अर्जेंटीना, बोलिविया और क्या नेक्स्ट था, पेरू क्या, बिकॉज यू आर लुकिंग फॉर अ वेस्टर्न कोस्ट. मेडिटेरेनियन जो होता है, मेडिटेरेनियन क्लाइमेट, वो हमेशा, अभी हमने उस दिन देखा ना प्रेशर, जब हम विंड्स पढ़ रहे थे एंड शिफ्टिंग ऑफ बेल्ट्स पढ़ रहे थे, तो मैंने आपको मेडिटेरेनियन क्लाइमेट की खासियत बताई थी. वो क्या होता है, ड्राई समर्स होते हैं एंड वेट विंटर्स होता है. विंटर्स वेट क्यों होता है, बिकॉज ड्राई समर्स के दौरान ऑफशोर ट्रेड विंड्स होते हैं, लेकिन जब विंटर्स आते हैं तो यू हैव ऑनशोर वेस्टर्लीज. ओके, एंड ऑनशोर वेस्टर्लीज टेंड टू ब्रिंग रेनफॉल, विच मींस वेस्टर्लीज किस डायरेक्शन में ऑनशोर होंगे, वेस्टर्न कोस्ट पे, राइट. तो आपको मेडिटेरेनियन क्लाइमेट्स यूजुअली वेस्टर्न कोस्ट पे मिलते हैं, एनीवेयर बिटवीन 30 to 45 डिग्री साउथ और 30 to 45 डिग्रीज नॉर्थ. ओके, दैट इज वेयर यू विल एसेंशियली फाइंड ऑल योर मेडिटेरेनियन क्लाइमेट्स. तो चिले इज द ओनली वन अमंग ऑल दीज कंट्रीज दैट क्लासिफाइज देयर. ओके, एंड प्लस यू हैव टू रिमेंबर कि चिले को मल्टीपल क्लाइमेट्स भी मिल जाते हैं, मेडिटेरेनियन इज जस्ट वन ऑफ दोस गिव्स. या, सो वी आर गोइंग विथ चिले. केन्या को इसलिए नहीं हो सकता, केन्या यार, केन्या यहाँ पे है, ये इक्वेटर के पास, फेमसली केन्या इज नियर द इक्वेटर. ओके, तो वो इक्वेटर पे आपको मेडिटेरेनियन क्लाइमेट नहीं मिलेगा. मेडिटेरेनियन क्लाइमेट इज अ टेम्परेट काइंड ऑफ अ क्लाइमेट जो सब ट्रॉपिकल, मतलब ट्रॉपिक्स के बाहर मिल जाएगा आपको. ओके, यू विल नेवर फाइंड इट समवेयर इन द, समवेयर क्लोजर टू द इक्वेटर, वो पॉसिबल नहीं है इक्वेटर के पास वो क्लाइमेट. ठीक है जी. नेक्स्ट वन, विच इज नॉट अ बायो, यू विल हैव टू ज्वाइन द लेक्चर ऑन जूम if you, because we do not have power. Which is not a biomass energy source. इसमें से कौन सा biomass energy source नहीं है? आपके options are wood, nuclear reactor, gobar gas and coal. I have a issue with this question because coal ideally figure नहीं करना चाहिए. Coal renewable नहीं है. Biomass energy source का definition ये होता है कि वो directly nature से derive किया गया हो and वो renewable हो. Coal renewable नहीं है, वो खत्म हो जाता है एक बार हो गया तो उसका. Okay, so we are saying कि coal cannot be a thing. वुड एंड गोबर गैस को हम ऑब्वियसली कंसिडर करते हैं बिकॉज गोबर गैस आपको रिन्यूएबल है ना, आप उसको कंटिन्यूसली प्रोड्यूस कर सकते हो फ्रॉम वेस्ट. एंड वुड भी आइडियली, लॉग्स जो होते हैं, टिम्बर जिसको हम कहेंगे, वो भी आइडियली बायोमास का एनर्जी सोर्स माना जाएगा. न्यूक्लियर रिएक्टर हियर इज द मोस्ट ऑब्वियस आंसर बिकॉज वो बहुत ही आर्टिफिशियल है, इट इज नॉट रिलेटेड टू नेचर एट ऑल. ओके, तो वी विल गो विद ऑप्शन बी, न्यूक्लियर रिएक्टर. ओके, न्यूक्लियर रिएक्टर इज गोइंग टू बी आवर आंसर. एंड ऊपर के लिए चीले था, जस्ट इन केस. ओके, नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन। तीन स्टेटमेंट्स दिए आपको यूनेस्को क्रिएटिव सिटीज नेटवर्क के ऊपर बेस्ड, एंड यू हैव टू वेरीफाई वेदर उसमें से कौन सा स्टेटमेंट सही है नहीं है। कोഴിकोड इंक्लूडेड इन यूनेस्को क्रिएटिव सिटीज नेटवर्क एज सिटी ऑफ म्यूजिक, गरबा ऑफ गुजरात डिक्लेयर्ड यूनेस्को इंटेंजिबल कल्चरल हेरिटेज, एंड ग्वालियर इंक्लूडेड इन यूनेस्को क्रिएटिव सिटीज नेटवर्क एज सिटी ऑफ लिटरेचर। ओके, इसमें से कौन सा करेक्ट है? अभी आपको ऑप्शन ये दिया था कि कोഴിकोड को आप सिटी ऑफ म्यूजिक बोलो एंड ग्वालियर को आप सिटी ऑफ लिटरेचर बोलो, एंड गरबा ऑफ गुजरात इज अ इंटेंजिबल कल्चरल हेरिटेज। इंटेंजिबल मतलब जिसको आप फील नहीं कर सकते, जिसको आप मेजर नहीं कर सकते ना, दैट सॉर्ट ऑफ थिंग। सो इंटेंजिबल कल्चरल हेरिटेज गरबा डेफिनेटली है। ओके, योर ऑप्शंस आर, आपका प्रॉब्लम इज बिटवीन द फर्स्ट एंड द थर्ड स्टेटमेंट। कोഴിकोड फेमसली लिटरेचर के लिए फेमस है। रिमेंबर, हम वहां पे एशिया का सबसे लार्जेस्ट लिटरेरी फेस्टिवल चलता है वहां पे कोഴിकोड में, जिसको हम पहले कैलिकट बुला करते थे। रिमेंबर, दैट इज प्रेजेंटली कॉल्ड एज कोഴിकोड इन केरला। सो वहां पर एशिया का लार्जेस्ट फेस्टिवल होता है, द केरला लिटरेरी फेस्टिवल। एंड वो जो फेस्टिवल होता है दैट अट्रैक्ट्स पीपल ऑल ओवर एशिया। ओके, सो क्लियरली दैट सिटी इज फेमस फॉर लिटरेचर, दैट सिटी इज इन फेमस फॉर म्यूजिक। ग्वालियर इज फेमस फॉर म्यूजिक। उसके पीछे हिंदुस्तानी क्लासिकल में एक घराना है, ग्वालियर घराना, राइट, स्टाइल ऑफ सिंगिंग। सो क्लियरली सर उनको वो फोन्स चाहिए एक्चुअली, वो जूम नहीं देख रहे क्या सर? सर उन्होंने एक्चुअली जूम पे लेक्चर देखना चाहिए, बिकॉज अपने पास पावर नहीं है ना। तो हाँ, तो इसलिए मैंने उनको बोला था कि जूम पे लेक्चर लगाओ ये वाला। तो अब वो बच्चे पता नहीं जूम पे ही देख रहे क्या देख रहे हैं। हाँ, तो ले लीजिए, उसका कुछ नहीं कर सकते, क्योंकि वो तो वैसे भी देखेंगे नहीं दे, अगर वो पहले नहीं देख रहे थे तो। वो नहीं देख रहे थे ना जूम पे लेक्चर, कुछ और कर रहे थे ना फोन पे। हाँ, तो मत दीजिए उनको, अभी क्या कर सकते हैं। क्लास को डिस्टर्ब करने से बेटर है कि वो सुने फिर। ठीक है पीपल, सो आउट ऑफ दीज ऑप्शंस वी डू नॉट हैव पावर, सो वी विल, यू विल हैव टू जॉइन द लेक्चर ऑन जूम, एनडी ऑनलाइन लेक्चर वॉट एवर दैट इज। उसको ज्वाइन कर लीजिए, और वॉल्यूम अपने फोन का भी बंद कर दीजिए और इसका भी ऑडियो बंद कर दीजिए। ओके, so your options are going to be Koikut to be the literature, city of literature, and Gwalior to be the city of music. Okay, ठीक है। All right. Next, which statement about black cotton soils of India is not correct? Okay, we are discussing black cotton soils of India, and we are going to figure out which of these statements is not correct. Options are: it is also called as regur. Regur बुलाते हैं black cotton. Do we call regur black cotton soil? Yeah, absolutely. It is highly moisture retentive. Is that statement correct? Yes, it is. Remember, it has that famous self-ploughing ability. Regur soil. What happens is, if it is dry, okay, there is no water. If it becomes dry, then clearly it develops all those cracks. Okay, meaning acha khasa, it is clearly aerated well now. Clearly it gets enough air. Okay, once it receives even slight amount of water, it becomes all that sticky, muddy kind of thing. Okay, so clearly, very famously, highly moisture retentive, like clay. It is very much like clay. It does contain a large amount of clay. So clearly, it is very much like that, and famously self-flowing in nature. Okay, it is rich in lime. Is it rich in lime? Yes, it is famously rich in lime. Okay, ये soil बहुत famously rich in lime होता है. It has less clay and supports wide variety of crops. Less clay तो नहीं बोल सकते. इसको 50% से ज्यादा तो clay होता है इसमें. तो clearly आप ये you cannot say that it has less clay. It does support a wide variety of crops, but not less clay. Okay, you cannot say that it has less clay. Okay. Um, which of these is not a so your option? This is going to be the option that we are looking for. It has less clay. Okay, that is going to be the wrong option. That is the incorrect statement. Question 107. Which of these is not a main greenhouse gas? Water vapor, oxygen, carbon dioxide, methane. Oxygen. Oxygen is not a main greenhouse gas. Which are the five main greenhouse gases? Water vapor, ozone, carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. हाँ? ये पांच जो होंगे आपके, नहीं nitrous oxide नहीं, पांच. So we'll have these five as main greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases क्या करते हैं? Why are they important? Would the would the Earth survive without the presence of greenhouse gases? No. Okay. Why? Because greenhouse gases act as glass. What they'll do is they will allow the sun's shortwave radiation to pass through the atmosphere. Okay, but the Earth heats up and emits long wave radiation. clearly these greenhouse gases will trap that heat. They will not allow this radiation to pass. कांच को देखा है खिड़की. If you sit in a car in the middle of summer in an open parking lot, okay, what happens to the car? And you close down the windows, okay, you roll up the windows. What happens to the car? It heats up. Why is that? Because it will allow all the heat from outside to come in. The sun's rays it will allow to come in. But when the car heats up and starts giving out radiation, it will trap all that heat. It will not allow that heat to go out. Okay, that is how the glass works. Okay, glass works like that. And these greenhouse gases will also work in a similar fashion. Okay, they will allow the sun's short-wave radiation to come in, but they will not allow the earth's long-wave radiation to pass out, which means all that heat remains trapped now. Okay, so with the optimum amount of greenhouse gases, the temperature of the earth is maintained, the surface temperature of earth is maintained somewhere at 14 to 15 degrees Celsius, which is good for us. It is good for survival. Okay, but considering that clearly the carbon dioxide levels are increasing in the air, the greenhouse gases are becoming more, the ability to trap heat is becoming more, hence the global temperatures are warming, which we call as global warming. And that is a problem for us. Okay, but greenhouse gases are a necessity. We require those greenhouse gases. We will not be able to do without greenhouse gases. If we did not have this atmosphere or the greenhouse gases within the atmosphere, the Earth's surface temperature would have been anywhere close to minus 18 degrees Celsius. Do you think humanity would survive at minus 18 degrees Celsius? No, really not. Okay. So we are going with the option oxygen. Oxygen is not a greenhouse gas. It is the life gas. We need it for breathing. Question 108. This is good. Yeah. Question 108. The clean development mechanism under the Kyoto Protocol implies that industrial countries receive carbon credits funding projects in affluent nations. Industrial countries reduce emissions via eco-friendly technology. Developed countries invest in carbon reduction in developing countries, receive carbon credit in return, and developed nations purchase carbon credit from other nations. What is your option? What happens in clean development? What is the Kyoto Protocol? Why did we establish the Kyoto Protocol at all? This was way back in 1997. Why did we even go for that? Because we wanted to balance out all the carbon emissions. Okay. So clearly there were developed countries that, emitted carbon, had a lot of carbon emissions, and there were the developing countries which did not have as many carbon emissions. Okay. Now it is like saying everybody has a limit. Say everybody has around 100 carbon credits. Okay. So you are allowed to only spend that much. You're only allowed to emit that much. Clearly the developed countries are going to emit more. Okay, which means that if they wish to reach their limit, they'll have to borrow it from somebody else, right? With the carbon emissions, they'll have to borrow from somebody else to balance out their extra emissions, right? So they used to borrow. The thing is that you borrow it from or you buy it from the carbon credits are bought from the developing countries which are not emitting enough. Okay, जिनके इतने carbon emissions नहीं है, who do not have enough carbon emissions. Now the way to do it is they call it carbon credits because you call it purchasing carbon credits because essentially you are exceeding your limit of carbon emissions and some other country is not. So you're trying to balance your share within theirs. Okay, that is what you're essentially doing. So this funda usually worked as that a developed nation like say USA was not part of the Kyoto Protocol. Let's leave them out. A developed nation like France or Germany or China or somebody like that, they used to go ahead and because their emissions were very high, so they used to develop in eco-friendly technologies in developing nations. Okay, because developing nations did not have enough money to invest in eco-friendly technologies. So these people used to provide money because they clearly have money and they have more carbon emissions also. So they used to provide them with the money to invest in eco-friendly technologies so that their carbon emissions would be reduced. And this is how they used to balance out their extra carbon emissions. Okay, developed nations के extra carbon emissions were balanced out by helping developing nations into developing nice new eco-friendly technologies that would reduce carbon emissions throughout. Okay, is this understood? So your option is going to be C. Your option is going to be C, that developed countries invest in carbon reduction. In developing countries, receive carbon credit in returns. Okay, that is what they used to do. Clearly, US did not be a part of it, no matter how much anybody said. The UN COP27 summit relates to Russia-Ukraine war, terrorism and counterterrorism, climate change, or Interpol. We are talking of the UN COP27 summit. So were the issues at that time Russia-Ukraine war, the terrorism and counterterrorism, climate change, or Interpol? Somebody saying something? No. We are going for climate change. The UN COP27 was also about climate change. वो भी climate change को लेकर ही था. Okay. We did not bother so much about the Russia-Ukraine war or the terrorism or counter-terrorism thing. Anyways, question 110. Which city is associated with the biosafety protocol to the Convention on Biological Diversity 2000? There was a Convention on Biological Diversity. We call that as CBD. Okay. And there was a biosafety protocol over which we had quite lively discussions. Okay. Let's say the discussions were very lively. People were not agreeing to one thing. Your options are Geneva, Nairobi, Cartagena, and Rio de Janeiro. It should not be Janeiro, but okay. No, not Geneva. Cartagena, absolutely. Who said Cartagena? Cartagena is the place. Cartagena in Colombia is the place where the initial discussions were held. And like I said, they were very lively discussions because clearly people were not agreeing to things. See, people, you're trading in something, right? Some countries receive the maximum benefits in trading something. So when you're following a biosafety protocol and you're not just talking about trading, you're talking about other international hazards. I mean, how do you say? Lane, you give and take stuff when you're doing. So clearly, when you initiate these biosafety protocols, they will not go down very happily with everybody else, right? People are going to have problems with it, especially if money is getting affected. USA fought a civil war at one time just for the sake of money. So clearly, you are not going to have an easy way doing this. So Cartagena, the discussions in Cartagena did not reach a conclusion actually. Okay, the whole thing was finalized sometime a year later in Montreal, but you remember Cartagena as that city. If ever the city is asked, then the discussions were finalized in Montreal, but the initial round and the most major and most, most famous round of discussion went on in Cartagena in Colombia. Okay, where's Colombia? South America? Okay, okay. We are going with Cartagena. Which best describes the lithosphere? Lithosphere को सबसे best कैसे describe करेंगे? Upper and lower mantle, crust and core, crust and upper mantle, or lower mantle and core? Crust and upper mantle. Famously crust and upper mantle. Okay. Lithosphere is crust and upper mantle. And what does the lithosphere float upon? The asthenosphere. Absolutely correct. Consider the characteristics of industries. One, it is located in wide variety of places. Okay. Second, it does not depend on specific raw materials. Third, it is generally not polluting. And fourth, accessibility is the key location factor. Which type of industry are we talking about? Market-oriented, footloose, sunset, or sunrise industries? First of all, it has to be located in a wide variety of places, and it does not depend upon a specific raw material. Clearly, it cannot be a raw material based industry. See, something like coal or iron and steel has to be a raw material based industry. Okay, why? Because coal and iron and steel are very bulky. Okay, if you're going to carry them from one place to another, clearly you're going to take a lot of time and effort and money. Economically, also, it's going to cost you to carry stuff from one, just to bring it from the source site to your company, okay, to your factory. So clearly, these places have to be raw material based. Are there industries that are market based? Yeah. Kapde ki dukaan, fabrics industry or clothes industry, that is usually market based. You have to be closer to the market. You have to be able to see what kind of clothes people are wearing to go and sell them, right? You can't just, if you're selling clothes, you cannot not follow the trend. Okay, you have to follow the fashion or whatever the trend is or whatever people are most likely wearing. So that is going to be a market oriented industry. Okay. Look at this fact also, that is generally not polluting. How many industries do you know that are generally not polluting? Very few, right? There are very few industries that are generally not polluting, that are spread out in a wide variety of places and do not specifically depend on one specific location for their raw material. And lastly, accessibility chahiye. Accessibility matlab you need all sorts of accessibility to infrastructure, communication, and transportation. Which of these industries is going to be market oriented? Nahi ho sakte, because you clearly have to depend on the market. You have to be at a specific place. You can't be at different places. Footloose industries, would you call them footloose industries? What are footloose industries? They come with these four characteristics. One, that they do not depend on a certain place. They do not depend on a certain raw material. So do not have to be at a specific location pe nahi chal sakte. And that they do not, generally polluting nahi hote. You usually work in a small space and get things done. And watches, diamond making, IT industries. No, you don't. Watches can be moving parts, multiple moving parts, very specific set of skills required. It's a very niche skill set, right? So you require a very specific skill set, and then you can just sit at any place. I don't have to be in Pune. I don't have to be in Bangalore. I don't have to be in a metropolitan city just to make a watch, or you know, yeah, for diamonds or for IT industry also. As long as I have a working internet and a laptop or any sort of machine, I should be able to work, right? I should be able to do my job. So once again, these are, and they're generally not polluting also, but I do need access to, accessibility is a key location factor, right? I can't just be in the mountains somewhere and work around. I need communication and I need transportation. Okay. These things are definitely required. Are we good? These industries are called as footloose industries. Okay. Your answer here is going to be footloose industries. Tell me, what are sunrise and sunset industries? Do you have any idea what sunrise and sunset industries are? Uh, you want to say something? Okay. Sunrise industries are usually those which are very new in their development curve. Something like green energy or something like electrical vehicles. And it's a new industry. And you clearly see there is a lot of potential for it to develop, right? There's going to be plenty of potential for the industry to develop. And usually you will find a lot of startups also, usually, in these kind of industries. Even AI, deep tech, no, machine learning, you will see a lot of industries. You can clearly see that the learning curve is great. You can clearly see that the potential to develop is also very huge. And now there will be plenty of people who will be willing to venture into here. They'll be able to put in their capital so that these industries can develop. Okay, they're just at the beginning of their development. So such industries will be called as sunrise industries. Sunset industries are the exact opposite of it. They will be mature industries that have come to the end of their life cycle. Okay, something like print media, newspapers kitna padte hai, magazines kitna padte hai hum log na, print media or coal industry. People are shunning that option right now, right? You don't want thermal power anymore because it leaves a huge carbon footprint. You don't want that anymore, right? So clearly, those industries would be classified or termed as sunset industries. Is this good? Huh? Okay, next, match the grassland with its country. Your options are pampas, wells, downs, llanos, and options are Venezuela, Australia, South Africa, Argentina. Pampas कहाँ मिलता है? Argentina, very good. Pampas are found in Argentina. Famous grasslands. Wells, VLD, Weld. Where do you find wells? South Africa, very good. Wells are found in South Africa. Downs, Australia. Downs are famously in Australia. And Llanos with Venezuela. That is the option. Okay, Llanos in Venezuela. So your option is going to be 4, 3, 2, 1. ये वाला first option. Very correct. Grasslands को match करने को आना चाहिए. People, you should be able to do that. Which river was earlier known as Vitasta? Options are Tista, Jhelum, Tungabhadra, Bharatpuya. Jhelum. Correct. If we are here, I am also going to, मैंने ना for those of you who can see the screen, you can see that we are looking at the names of rivers in ancient India. Okay, so you have this. There is Saraswati, which is often identified with the Ghaggar Hakra system. तो वो तो अभी हम मानते हैं कि it's a lost river. Okay, we don't find that river anymore. Indus is called what? Acha, Indus used to be famously called as the Sindhu, है ना? The name from which the country derives a name, India, Indus, है ना? So we are looking at that. Vitasta used to be Jalab, okay? Then Askini, Chenab used to be called as Askini, and then Ravi used to be called as Parushni, and or there is another name Iravati. This I'm seeing for the first time. Huh? Bias used to be called as Vipasha, and Satlaj used to be called as Shutudri. Okay, ठीक है? ब्रह्मपुत्र का एक नाम था ना? Brahmaputra used to get an old name now. Uh, एक मिनट लोहित्य और समथिंग ऐसे कुछ नाम था ब्रह्मपुत्र का. आई रिमेम्बर बिकॉज वो लोहित करके एक रिवर है उसकी शुरुआत में. ब्रह्मपुत्र ओल्ड नेम लोहित्य. Or in ancient scriptures, it is also referred to as Hiranya or Mandakini. Why Mandakini? Anyways, no problem. Mandakini is a new river also. You have that in the Panch Prayag, no? You find that river there. So we will go, but the name is Lohitya, okay? The name is Lohitya. For ancient Brahmaputra, we used to call it Lohitya, okay? Or Hiranya, call it Hiranya, whatever. All right. Tista कहाँ मिलती है बाबा? Tell me, where do you find the river Tista? हाँ, you're correct. We are in the, it is a tributary of Brahmaputra. Very good. Tungabhadra, where do we find it? Deccan Plateau, Karnataka. Karnataka, Tungabhadra, no? On the banks of which you had the great Vijayanagar Empire. Bharatpuya, वो कहाँ? Kerala. Kerala में मिलती है. Left coast पे, Malabar coast के यहाँ जाने वाली. Okay. I'm pronouncing it wrong, ain't I, Atma? I'm pronouncing the river wrong, na? No, it's okay. ठीक है. That's the river basin and this town. यार इसको ना इसका कोई इलाज नहीं है. ये तो मैंने भी 4 बार चेक किया था जब ये क्वेश्चन आया था, तो आई डोंट नो हाउ यू पीपल आर गोइंग टू रिमेंबर दिस. यू हैव बीन गिवन 4 rivers and you have asked to be match it with a town that falls in that river basin. Okay, your options are Bhagirathi, Alaknanda, Nayar and Ganga. ये 4 rivers है. And शहरों के options are, the names of the cities are Lansdowne, Narendranagar, Uttarkashi and Pauri. I'm just giving you the answer because there is no point in discussing this. Bhagirathi is Pauri. Wait a second now. Alaknanda is Uttarkashi, Nayar is going to be Lansdowne, and Ganga is going to be Narendra. That is the option. No, उल्टा होना चाहिए ना. Wait a second. हाँ, वो फर्स्ट वाला भागीरथी should be उत्तरकाशी and अलकनंदा should be पौरी, right? 3-4 होना चाहिए वो. भागीरथी cannot be पौरी. Bhagirathi is going to be Uttarkashi and Alaknanda has to be Pauri. That is the option. So your option is going to be B, 3, 4, 1. Okay? But just remember it. And I hope to God you do not get such a question in your exams. तुक्के ना लगाइएगा, आपको नेगेटिव मार्किंग होती है ना. हाँ. Okay. Next question. Consider कौन सा नयार कौन सा रिवर है? वही ऊपर वो उत्तराखंड एरिया में ही मिलता है आपको ये सारा. इसीलिए तो वो लैंसडाउन का ऑप्शन आया ना आपके पास. And Ganga is going to be Narendranagar. Okay. Consider that the distance, ये statement से कुछ distance between longitudes is 0 at north and south pole. Is this true? That the distance between 2 longitudes will become 0 at north and south pole? Yes, because the longitudes will tend to join over there. Okay. So ये first statement तो सही है. Distance between longitudes is maximum at the equator? Yes. The distance between longitudes is always maximum at the equator and the distance keeps on reducing as and how you go towards the poles. Okay. ठीक है. And lastly, the number of longitudes is more than the number of latitudes by 179, I think. I'll tell you how this works. How many longitudes do you have? You have 0 degrees and you have 180 degrees. And between those two between that you find the eastern hemisphere and the western hemisphere. Okay. So that is 1 to 179 in the eastern hemisphere and 1 to 179 in the western hemisphere. Okay. Agreed? That is your number of longitudes. So that is total 360 longitudes, right? Agreed? And because they are semicircles, right? You're not looking at circles. Every longitude is going to be a semicircle running from the North Pole to the South Pole. That is what we are calling longitudes, okay? How many number of latitudes do you have? You have 1 at equator. And then in the Northern Hemisphere, you have 1 to 90 degrees. And in the Southern Hemisphere, you have 1 to 90 degrees. So this is 180, 90 plus 90, 180 plus 1 equator. So there's going to be 181 latitudes, okay? So 360 longitudes and 181 latitudes. Okay, that is what you will essentially have. So yes, the number of longitudes are always more than the number of latitudes. Okay. Okay. The next question. In India, the maximum amount of rainfall is received from the western disturbances, northeast monsoon, southwest monsoon, or retreating monsoon. South, southeast, or southwest? Southwest monsoon. Okay, very good. the maximum amount of rainfall that you get in India comes from the southwest monsoon. That is a given. Okay, which months does it normally rain between? June to September. It usually rains in between June to September. Okay. Now your thing is कि आपके पास दूसरे options है western disturbances, northeast monsoon and retreating monsoon. Okay, you have these other options also. Does it ever rain during these? Do you get any rain from western disturbances? Yes, the ones that you get in Punjab and Himachal, that is rain from the western disturbances. Okay, the western disturbances come from here, Mediterranean Sea. Very good. This is where you can call it western disturbances, depressions. It is basically a temperate cyclone. Okay, what you're looking at is a temperate cyclone. You say this is where this med. पर ये पीडीएफ भेजू क्या मैं उनको? अच्छा, तो वो पीडीएफ देखेंगे, लेकिन फिर वो ये कैसे देखेंगे जो मैं बता रही हूँ साइड से? वो जूम के लेक्चर्स नहीं ज्वाइन करेंगे क्या? अरे लिंक क्यों चाहिए आपको बाबा? एक मिनट, इस लेक्चर की इंफॉर्मेशन कहाँ होती है? अरे वेयर इज द लेक्चर लिंक ना? मैं कहीं तो इंफॉर्मेशन हुआ करती थी ना? आई हाँ, तो मीटिंग। कर सकते हैं ना? There used to be the information na somewhere for this. I don't know where that information went. मिला क्या इन लोगों को? ये हाँ यू शुरू करवाइए इसको। कोई ये वाला प्रोजेक्टर शुरू कराइए। We'll go and get back on Zoom then. प्लीज इसको प्रोजेक्टर को ऑन कराइए ना प्लीज। Who's tallest among you all? ये लेक्चर कितने बजे तक चलेगा? 4 बजे तक? 2 घंटे पढ़ाना है। अगर 4 बजे तक चलेगा तो फिर मैं 5 मिनट का ब्रेक दूंगी एक पेपर के बाद और दूसरा पेपर सॉल्व करके। 12th standard, I can call up Anis Bhaiya and get him to ask one of you to climb up and switch on the projector. Will that work? Do I have to actually call up somebody in the office to make one of you go do that? और अब वहां से वो मीटिंग ज्वाइन करनी पड़ेगी. 1 2 3 4 yes sir. सर आप लोग को आता है नाम चाहिए कीजिए वो. NDA ऑनलाइन का फर्स्ट NDA ऑनलाइन लेक्चर वो वाला. Don't connect join with the audio. क्यों? 12th standard, we have back. We were discussing which kind of rainfall gives, which kind of winds give the maximum precipitation in India. So we discussed that is going to be southwest monsoons. Okay. Then we were discussing the western disturbances. We said the western disturbances develop here in the Mediterranean. It's a depression, a temperate cyclone. We are saying कि वो या तो एक तो यहाँ से निकलता है तो clearly थोड़ा moist होगा. It will clearly be a little moist because it will carry the moisture from the Mediterranean Sea. Then it will cross either the Caspian Sea or the Persian Gulf. Either way, it is coming down over here. And you are saying go all the way Pakistan, Afghanistan ke through, all the way it comes up to India. Okay, that is the general trajectory of the wind. Okay, so now you are saying that it comes over here in India. Two important things that happen over there. One is rainfall in Punjab. Okay, you get very slight precipitation, very light showers in Punjab. Less than 10 mm of rainfall, but that rainfall is very important for us because it is just before the harvest. Okay, just before the wheat harvest, and that is extremely beneficial for the wheat. The kind of light showers that you get just before the harvest, they are supposed to be extremely beneficial for the wheat. Okay. Secondly, this goes and collides against the Himalayas. It's a wind, right? So all those things go and collide against the Himalayas. And what happens over there? It starts to ascend. Okay. Once it goes and dashes or collides against the Himalayas, it will start to ascend. When it starts to ascend, it will give rainfall in the, it will give snowfall in the Kulu Valley. Okay. And hence all the amount of, it gives you a good amount of snowfall over there. 12th standard, do you mind? If you do, please leave the classroom. Okay. So we are saying it gives has a good amount of snowfall in the Kulu Valley. That is useful to us during summers later on. Okay, because that will eventually, the snow will melt. It will eventually go into the rivers and will add to the water. Okay, is this good? What about the northeast monsoons or the retreating rainfall? What do we say about that? Which direction will it go away? This. Now we are talking about this direction. Okay, so now these are trade winds from the northeast direction. You are saying the northeast rainfall is going to be basically the northeast trade winds, which are moving in this direction. And clearly they will move from the land part of that Burma and all, but it will cross the Bay of Bengal and give precipitation to this part of India. Okay, this is what normally Tamil Nadu does not receive a lot of rainfall in the southwest monsoons during southwest monsoon. Okay, but it receives good amount of rainfall in the winters. Okay, and this is the reason why it gets. Mostly summers are dry over here in Tamil Nadu. Summers are considered dry. Okay, climatically that is what you consider that. Okay, but then when these winds cross over the Bay of Bengal, they will carry all that moisture and they will give precipitation to the southeastern coast of India. Okay, a bit of Andhra and Tamil Nadu, a little bit of Kerala also, because that entire strip of land is pretty narrow over there. Okay, so it gives a good amount of rainfall there. But clearly, it is not enough, even though Tamil Nadu will not receive most of its rainfall during southwest monsoon. If you consider India on a whole, the maximum amount of rainfall or precipitation ever received in the country will be attributed to the southwest monsoons. Okay. All right. Moving forward, consider statement one: the Earth's rotation axis is not at 60 odd to its global plane, to its orbital plane. The Earth's rotation axis is inclined at 23.5 degrees. Which of these statements are correct? Yeah, if it is not at 60, then not at 60, right? What is the difference between an orbital plane and a vertical plane or vertical axis? Orbital is the one in which the Earth will revolve around the sun. So that is the horizontal plane that we are talking about. And which is going to be the vertical axis? The one that is, yeah, around which the Earth rotates. So both these statements are correct. The rotational axis is inclined at around 23 and 23.5 degrees to the vertical axis. And the Earth's rotational axis is not at 60 degrees. No, it is at what inclination is it at? 60? 6.5 ना 66.5 नहीं क्या 90 डिग्री का एंगल होना चाहिए ना अगर ये 23 है तो बचा कितना We are going with question 119. Telescopes are placed in space to view distant galaxies primarily to get closer to the observed objects, to avoid absorption of light or radiation in Earth's atmosphere, to avoid light pollution from populated areas, or to avoid steering the telescope against Earth's motion. Normally, telescopes are placed somewhere in the space. You do not necessarily always place them in the Earth's atmosphere. What is the reason? What is the primary reason for doing that? You are trying to stay out of the Earth's atmosphere. The reason being, when light from other galaxies reaches the Earth's atmosphere, many things can happen to it. It can scatter, it can be absorbed, it can be reflected. Lots of things can happen to it. You're trying to avoid all those phenomena of light in the Earth's atmosphere. Okay, that is essentially what you're doing. So your option is going to be this: to avoid absorption of light or radiation in the Earth's atmosphere. Okay, you wish to avoid all that. You're not worried about light from populated areas or Earth's motion or something like that. You're simply trying to avoid the Earth's atmosphere. You're trying to escape it completely because whatever goes on in the Earth's atmosphere with the incoming light is not something you wish to deal with when you're seeing through telescopes. Okay, that is just an interference. You don't want that. Basket of X topography is related to drumlins, eschers, cirques, moraines. क्या है landforms geomorphology? No idea. Drumlins. It's going to be drumlins. I'll show you what drumlins look like. You'll get an idea what they look like. Drumlins. Have you never done geomorphology? Okay, no problem. Okay. This is a good view of a drumlin. See this? Can you see this landform? That is a drumlin. Okay. It is a depositional landform of the glaciers. Okay. Whatever kind of moraine or glacial till वगैरह जो आता है from the glaciers, when it is deposited, it is usually deposited in this form. It looks like a ridge. Okay. It looks like a small ridge. So that is called as a drumlin. If you have multiple of these, this is a very problematic thing if you're farming, okay? Because huge drumlins deposited, you'll have to, how are you going to farm around this? You don't farm around it, right? It's going to be very difficult, especially, and if it is not made of boulder clay, drumlins are going to be very uncultivable. You cannot cultivate in it unless it is made up of boulder clay. Only boulder clay as glacier till will work. Other things are not very fertile. You cannot cultivate in them. That is not very ideal for farming. So clearly these things, if they are, and this is not a one-off thing. Usually you find them in bunches spread out over an area. Okay. So all these, if you look at it from a angle above, from a vertical angle, it's going to look like a basket of eggs, like how you arrange eggs in a basket. It's going to look like that. So drumlins are called as a basket of egg topography. You've never done any kind of geomorphology? You've never done landforms, erosional and deposition landforms of the wind or the running water. You guys have done, I have taught you. 12 plus, I have definitely taught. But you guys have never done geomorphology? Okay, okay. I'll keep that point. We are good. एक पेपर हो गया. सर कहाँ है? सर इनको 5 मिनट का ब्रेक देना है नेक्स्ट पेपर शुरू करने से पहले या कैसे कंटिन्यू करना है? ओके दिस इज 51 से शुरू किया। हिस्ट्री हिस्ट्री हिस्ट्री। यार मैंने तो किसी का ऐसे ये कर लिया है, किसी बच्चे का पेपर लिया है। इन स्वराज ये सब कुछ हिस्ट्री है राइट। हाँ। ये क्या है? करंट अफेयर्स, पॉलिटी, राजा। दिस इज, हाँ दिस इज गोइंग टू बी माई थिंग फ्रॉम हियर। नो नो। ऑस्ट्रेलियन इज हार्ड कोट राइट। हार्ड कोट पे होता है ऑस्ट्रेलियन। ऑस्ट्रेलियन इज नॉट ग्रास। एनीवेज हियर वी आर गोइंग टू डू दिस। ये वाले स्टेटमेंट्स जो है, यू नो दिस ना, स्टेटमेंट वन एंड स्टेटमेंट टू आर गिवन, यू हैव टू टेल इफ दे आर ट्रू नॉट ट्रू, इफ एंड इफ वन इज द रीजन फॉर द अदर राइट, if statement 2 is the reason for another. Okay, ठीक है। First question, minerals are formed by slow cooling of the magma. Is that correct? Minerals are formed by slow cooling of magma. Okay, ठीक है। Very small crystals are formed when lava cools quickly on the surface. If the lava cools very quickly, will the mineral size, the grain size be smaller or will the grain size be larger? Smaller. If it cools very quickly, then the process of formation is never complete, and that is why the grain size will be smaller. So the appearance will be a little polished, a little glassy, that sort of thing. The surfaces will be a little more polished and glassy. That is, and if it takes its own time, like granite, normally in granite, the rock takes its own time to cool and solidify. So clearly the grain size is larger. The crystal size is properly well developed. It's properly developed. Okay. So both statements are correct, but one does not explain the other. Basalt is this: very small crystals are formed when lava cools quickly on the surface. Basalt is an extrusive rock, right? It is formed above the surface of the earth. So it is exposed to the external elements too quickly. It is lava. It's basically cooling of the lava. Okay. So since the lava cools down very quickly, so essentially the elements, the grain size that is formed, the crystals that are formed are very small. So that is why basalt has this very glassy, polished kind of an appearance. That is how basalt works. So both statements are correct, but one does not explain the other. So we'll just go. It does not explain. No, you're essentially saying that minerals are. ऐसा नहीं है कि basalt में mineral. You can't say that basalt doesn't form minerals. Can you say basalt doesn't form minerals? No, minerals are formed after the cooling of either magma or lava. You're essentially saying that the mineral size will be smaller if it is cooled quickly, and the mineral size will be larger if it takes its own sweet time to cool. Okay, okay. So for this, we will go with both statements are correct, but one does not explain the other. Right? Look at the other one. Kulu Valley in Himachal Pradesh receives copious snowfall during winter. The Kulu Valley receives moisture-bearing winds of the western disturbances during winter. Are statements correct? Wrong? Nahi? We just spoke about the western disturbances and we just discussed light showers in Punjab and good amount of snowfall in Kulu Valley in Himachal Pradesh, which is going to essentially become snow and eventually during summers going to add to the waters of the rivers because that snow is going to melt. Are these two statements correct? Yes, they are absolutely correct. You say that the Kulu Valley in Himachal Pradesh does receive copious meaning in large amounts. Okay, copious meaning in large amounts. So it receives copious snowfall during winter. And is the second statement correct that the Kulu Valley receives moisture-bearing wind of the western disturbances? Yes, this happens during winter. So it is going to get that specific wind from the Mediterranean all the way through Caspian or Persian Gulf, all the way through Afghanistan and Pakistan, straight to India, northwestern India. It will give a good amount of rainfall in Punjab, light showers. But when it ascends the Himalayas, then because of that orographic rainfall, what you're essentially going to get is snowfall in the Kulu Valley. Okay. So yes, this statement is also correct and second explains first, right? The second explains the first statement. The hills with dense vegetation do not experience heavy soil erosion and the vegetation cover helps in infiltration of water, rainwater and binding of soils. Is this statement correct that the hills with dense vegetation do not experience heavy soil erosion? Yes, yes, absolutely. That is one very important reason why we say that afforestation is necessary because it will reduce the soil erosion and hence the soil degradation also for that matter. Because the more the soil is eroded, the degradation is going to just follow in its wake. Okay. So you say that yes, hills with dense vegetation do not experience heavy soil erosion. The reason is this, that when you have a good amount of vegetation, what do the roots of the trees do? They hold on to the soil, right? And the soil essentially will keep on increasing the groundwater level because it will allow the soil to the water to infiltrate into the soil. Okay, so clearly you get this. Both these statements are correct, and the reason is also the first is explained by the second. Now the second statement clearly explains the first statement. Okay, okay. Next, the decrease of air temperature with increasing altitudes in the atmosphere is called as vertical temperature gradient. इनके हिसाब से the decrease of air temperature with increasing altitudes, meaning now as and how you go away from the surface of the earth, the temperatures are going to decrease. Okay, that is called as vertical temperature gradient. Correct? We can call it normally, we call it normal lapse rate in environmental lapse rate, or normal lapse rate is what we call it. But we do call it a vertical temperature gradient because it is a difference in the temperature and it is in the vertical direction. So we call it the vertical temperature gradient. That is correct. Okay. In troposphere, air temperature decreases with increasing altitude due to radiation from the earth. I'm going with the first half of the sentence, that air temperature decreases with increasing altitude. Okay, this happens in the troposphere. We are in the troposphere, right? This kind of temperature gradient, vertical temperature gradient, is going to only apply to the troposphere. Will it apply to the stratosphere? No, it will be a other kind of thing. It's in the stratosphere with increasing altitude. Clearly, the temperature also increases. Okay, remember, this is how atmosphere works. In troposphere, with increasing altitude, temperature drops. In stratosphere, clearly, with increasing altitude, the temperature rises. Then again, in mesosphere, with increasing altitude, temperature drops. Mesosphere is the coldest. Have we done climatology? Have we done atmosphere? Have you done atmosphere before? Okay, I'll assume you have not. That is perfectly fine. Just listen to this explanation. In thermosphere, clearly, with increasing altitude, the temperature will also rise. Okay, and exosphere, you don't have to worry about increasing temperatures. किसी का alarm बज रहा है. ये कौन नहीं अलार्म नहीं है किसी का फोन आ रहा है whoever this is. Okay, so we are saying कि in troposphere air temperature decreases with increasing altitude. We are good with that part of the sentence, that in troposphere clearly the air temperature decreases with increasing altitude due to radiation from earth. So I'll give it due to radiation from earth. Let me explain to you how this works. We are saying this is the surface of the earth. Okay, this is the surface of the earth, right? Now what happens is, clearly the sun's rays are received, okay, over here. The sun's rays are received by the earth. The earth heats up, becomes a radiating body, and starts emitting long wave radiation. Okay, okay, clear so far? The earth will start to give out radiation. Now, when it gives out radiation, the first thing that it does is heat up this layer. Okay, the layer of the earth that is closest to the earth, it will heat up that layer. Okay, and then when this layer gets good amount of heat, that layer is going to pass that heat to the layer above it. Okay, and then this next layer is going to pass that heat to the layer above it. Okay, and so on and so forth. This is how the heat transfer is going to happen, and the process by which this happens is called as conduction. Okay, so we are right over here that the statement is partly correct in saying that the air temperature decreases with increasing altitude due to radiation from the earth, because the earth's atmosphere does not get heated by the sun's rays. That layer will heat up the second layer, will heat up the third layer above it, and so on and so forth. Okay, that is how the earth's atmosphere is heated up. So we'll go with this part. We'll say yes, it is heated by the radiation of the earth. Okay, and no, that does not explain why it is called the vertical temperature gradient. It simply explains why the temperature decreases as and how the altitude increases. Okay, is this clear, people? Chemical weathering processes are found more in hot and humid environment. Is this correct? Chemical weathering will be found more in hot and humid environment. Yes, 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 absolutely correct. And high temperature and rainfall help in decomposition of rocks. Yes, yes, that is the chemical process that we are talking about. So not only are both statements correct, the second statement actually explains the first absolutely well. Okay. एक्सेल नहीं, ये मेरा नहीं है, ये फिजिक्स है ना, एक्सेलरेशन ड्यू टू ग्रेविटी। sugars diagnosis, summer winter, 94 is one ना, okay, ठीक है, 94 is a mine, here we are, right? It is. The summer and winter seasons in the year are caused by aphelion and perihelion positions of the earth from the sun during the annual revolution revolution of the earth on its inclined axis. We get summer and winter seasons. What are they caused by? Is it because during the winter the sun is the farthest from us? What is aphelion and perihelion? We are saying the positions of the sun. Okay. Hey, you took your phone out. Why did you take your phone? Your phone is supposed to be here. Kudi, bring your phone back. Orange Jodi, bring your phone back. Silent करके रख दीजिए. Okay, summer and winter seasons in the year are caused by. We are saying your options are that you being asked that aphelion and perihelion, meaning the farthest and the nearest positions of the sun, happen to be in that orbit, and at that time you will get summer and winter. Is that true? No, that is not. Aphelion and perihelion will last for a day. These seasons last over 3 months, right? So clearly that is never going to be the case. Rotation of the Earth on its axis. What will cause? What will happen because of the rotation of Earth on its axis? Day and night. Day and night, right? We are talking of day and night. The variation in solar insolation, meaning you will at different latitudes you get different insolation. What does that cause? That will cause the varying length of day and night. Now we are saying ki clearly you are going to get at different latitudes in summers, the day keeps on increasing as and how you move from the equator towards the poles, and during winters the day will keep on decreasing as and how you move from the equator towards the poles. Okay, so that is the difference in solar insolation. What is your answer going to be? The revolution. The earth revolves around the this, and the axis is inclined, and because of the combination of these two factors you will essentially get seasons. Okay, if the tilt wasn't there, if that tilt didn't happen, it was very difficult for you to get any amount of seasons. We would have received an equal amount of insolation throughout. From the top to the bottom, we would have received an equal amount of insolation. Okay, because we have that tilt at 23 and a half, the tropics get marked at 23 and a half, north and south, and because of that you get maximum insolation within the tropics and very less or very inclined insolation outside of it. Okay, and hence you get the proper seasons we are talking about, and length of varying day and night and so on and so forth. Okay, your option is going to be option D. Okay, ये वाला बताइए, which among the following is a coral group of islands? Lakshadweep, famous sea. We group Andaman Nicobar, the majority will go. Hello, G, we are back. Answer the question. Question 103. क्या हो गया? आपको वापस वहां से ज्वाइन करना पड़ेगा। नहीं, आपको वहां से ज्वाइन करना पड़ेगा बिकॉज वी गॉट डिस्कनेक्टेड ना। अजीब बच्चे हैं यार। मुझे स्टॉप शेयर का ऑप्शन दिख रहा है विच मीन्स मेरा स्क्रीन शेयर है। Okay. Consider the following surface winds: doldrums, trade winds, westerlies, polar winds. Arrange them from the equator towards the poles. Where do what do you normally call as doldrums? Is it a wind or is it a bed? You, sir? Gray shirt. Is it a wind or a belt? Go to the back of the class and stay standing. Or you can leave. Either of the options is okay. Uh, uh, who was trying to answer me? You were trying to answer me. Doldrums is a belt, a pressure belt. Yeah, normally ITCZ. Hmm. So we were saying trade winds blow between subtropical high from the subtropical high to the equator. Okay, so we are saying if this is the equator, we are saying this is the equator, and this is the subtropical high at subtropical high at 30 degrees north and 30 degrees south. Okay, so the trade winds will blow from here, southeast trade winds and northeast trade winds. Okay, that is what we normally call as trade winds. This thing, the ITCZ, we call as the ITCZ or the doldrums. Okay, we are referring, when we say doldrums, we are referring to this. Okay. What about westerlies? Where is your friend? Oh, what about westerlies? Where do westerlies? Sit down, man. Sit down. It's okay. What about the westerlies? अरे बैठ जाइए, उनको भी बोलिए वेस्टर्लीज क्या है उसके ऊपर। हाँ, वी आर सेइंग 30 to 60 डिग्रीज नॉर्थ एंड 30 to 60 डिग्रीज साउथ में जो विंड्स ब्लो करेंगे उनको वेस्टर्लीज कहेंगे। ओके, वी आर सेइंग so now these are going, once again you need wind to come from a high pressure zone, right? So it is coming from the subtropical high to the subpolar low. Sorry, subtropical high. We did it just yesterday. Acha, you guys weren't there yesterday. No problem. Subtropical high to subpolar low, those will be the westerlies. Okay, and polar winds will obviously blow beyond that. Okay, they will blow in the from the subpolar low, from the northern high and southern high to the subpolar low. Okay, that is where the polar winds will blow from. So here, how are you going to arrange these terms? Which is the first one closer to the equator? Doldrums. Okay. Then after that, doldrums will be the first one, then trade winds, then westerlies, and then the polar winds. That is how it is going to be from the equator towards the poles. Okay. So we are going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. This is your option. The option is correct. हो गया? Semiconductors, isotopes. ये वाला बताइए बाबा. Leaves of which of the following plants are not used for rearing of silkworms? Mulberry, castor, oak, teak. मैं ही बता देती हूँ. Oak होता है? Oak is not allowed. अच्छा, you are thinking, okay, okay. I thought teak not allowed, man. What are you saying? Teak leaves, form bearing. Teak leaves are not the primary feed for commercial silkworms. Normally, na, that depending on the type of tree that you are having the silkworm on, that will be the kind of silk that is formed. Okay, so Assam gives you all those four qualities. वो जो चार होते हैं ना, एरी, मुगा, टसर and एक और quality होती है. तो वो all four qualities you get in Assam. So that is famous because you will different tree will yield a different type of silk. Okay, the earthworms will yield a different type of silk. So sometimes they can be done on a commercial scale. It can be done on a domestic scale also. So teak leaves are the ones that are not usually used. You can do it with mulberry, you can do it with castor, you can do it with oak, but not with teak. Okay, teak is not used. Sorry, why not teak? Because it is not conducive to the growth of the silkworms. Silkworms will not survive on anything and everything. No? You need something. You need those biochemical reactions to be perfect between the silkworm and the tree beneath it. So if it does not have those properties which will induce those biochemical reactions, the silkworm rearing will not happen essentially. Okay. No, this. Next one. Tangut Pass is a. एक second, no? You are saying oak. Sorry? Oak leaves for silkworm rearing. Yeah, primary oak टसर बनता है. Oak से टसर silk बनता है. So oak is definitely that. Mulberry will give you the which मलबरी कौन सा देता है यार आपको मलबरी फॉर सिल्कवर्म्स which silk मलबरी सिल्क नहीं उसको मलबरी सिल्क एरी एरी बुलाएंगे एरी सिल्क बुलाते हैं उसको एक वन सेकेंड डिफरेंट हाँ जी मलबरी इज या मलबरी इज अ हाई क्वालिटी सिल्क वन सेकेंड ना मुगा सिल्क लीव्स ये मुगा सिल्क इज गोइंग टू बी द नेचुरल गोल्डन येलो ये आपको सिर्फ ब्रह्मपुत्र में ही मिलता है दैट इज व्हाई असम विल गिव यू दोस फोर ऑल स्पेसिफिक क्वालिटीज ऑफ सिल्क I just remember that Assam gives you those, no other this will give you. ये वाला बताइए Tango Pass in the mountain corridor connecting India with here. What sounds like Tango in Afghanistan, China, and Pakistan and Myanmar? ये चार options में what sounds like Tango? Myanmar. Only Myanmar sounds like Tango, no? हाँ. So we'll go with Tango. Myanmar. Sorry. ये physics का question है ना? हाँ. ये अपना नहीं है. Crystallization. Oh, good. ये वाला बताइए. Lapland is a cultural region largely within the Arctic Circle or in the north of Scandinavian Peninsula. Who inhabited the Lapland? ये once again world geography में आपको this is one in world geography now you will normally get 2-3 kinds of questions one based on climates okay so they'll tell you this is the kind of tree or the forest that are normally available where do you find these so you have to know what kind of forest they are they temperate forests are they tropical forests some specific trees will also be given and then of course you need to know in which part of the world this lies so that can be one sort of question in world geography the second can be you will be asked to, well, for example, currently UPSC loves the Sahara region. So they'll keep asking you, what is Sahel? What is this? What is that? So they name different provinces within a specific huge, geographical area, and then ask you to name which area this falls in or what this is for. So that is one way world geography works. And the third is this, tribes and people. Okay, that is what they specifically ask you about. And one more, rivers and oceans, especially this part of the world. ये Turkey वाला part है ना, that part. Love this part. ये वाला part. ना, they're going to ask you this part. ये यहाँ से कौन से स्ट्रेट से अंदर जाएंगे, फिर वहां से ब्लैक सी से वो और कौन से सी में जाएंगे, how are Azov Sea and Black Sea related, or then how do you get what connects the Strait of Bosphorus? So all these kind of questions we prepared for it. Okay. हाँ जी, ये बताइए इसका आंसर क्या होगा? लैपलैंड इज अ कल्चरल रीजन largely within the Arctic Circle in the north of the Scandinavian peninsula who inhabited the Lapland. I'll tell you Sami. Samis were the kind of people who inhabited the Lapland. Okay, so we are looking at that people. Okay, considering the locations of mountains in India, which one among the following is the right sequence from south to north? South to north लगाना है आपने. Doda Betta. We'll begin with Doda Betta. Very good. So we'll begin with Doda Betta, then move on to Vindhyachal. You're talking of the Vindhyas because Doda Betta is in the south, right? Then you move on to Vindhyachal. Okay, and then from Vindhyachal you go to Dhaulagiri and then Kailash. That is the only option. No, you don't have the option for Kailash and Dhaulagiri, so you don't need to worry about the northern mountains there. Okay, it's going to be Dhaulagiri and then Kailash. Okay. Which is the tallest mountain peak in southern India? Doda Betta. Is Doda Betta the tallest peak in southern India? Huh? I have a very serious question, and I am not trying to gauge you, judge you, or anything. You know your syllabus, right? You know your syllabus for this September attempt. Honestly, how much of it has been covered so far? By you, by anybody else? How much of it has been covered? Because if I question you on India, you are not very responsive. If I question you on physical geography, again, you're not very responsive. So I really wish to know, is there a section of the syllabus that has been done, or it has been done? Has India ever been done? Have you ever done India? ये वाला क्या है? अभी डोडा बेट्टा विंध्याचल वगैरह, you've never done Indian physiography? Okay, okay, no problem. Annai Mudi, thank you for telling me that. तो डोडा बेट्टा किसका tallest peak है? नीलगिरी. Okay, ये वाला बताइए, which among the following lakes is situated on the west coast of India? चिलिका, अष्टमुडी, पुलिकट, कोलेरू. Western coast of India चाहिए. चिलिका कहाँ lie करता है? ओडिशा. तो it's on the eastern coast clearly, है ना? थोड़ा सा north eastern part में. पुलिकट तमिलनाडु आंध्र का ये border. So once again eastern coast. Koleru once again Andhra. So once again eastern coast. Which is left? Ashtamudi. Kerala lake na? This is a lake from Kerala. Good. You are funny. You're really funny if you don't know that. कहाँ गया मेरा अष्टमुड़ी? I am in the wrong place. What again? नहीं, अष्टमुड़ी is here, no? This is अष्टमुड़ी. I think it means 8 peaks or something like that. है ना? Okay. So it is अष्टमुड़ी or अष्टमुदी? Okay. Sound waves is not a thing. Vitamin D neither. Oh, good. Question 126 is a very good question. What is the correct sequence from the smallest to the largest grain of the following types of clastic rocks? Clastic meaning something that comes together, which is made up of smaller grains. Okay, so clastic is a kind of a sedimentary rock. Plastic rocks are sedimentary basically in nature. So you have shale, sandstone, conglomerate, and siltstone. Okay. Wait a second. What are you saying? You begin with sandstone. Sand is smaller. Is sand smaller or silt smaller? Silt. Is alluvium smaller or beach sand smaller? Alluvium is smaller. Silt is smaller, right? So clearly silt has to be before sand. So anywhere that you see silt before sand, that is going to be your thing. And you have only just one option. Even that is a thing. Anyways, you have to know that conglomerate is that larger kind of rock. I have done rocks with you, haven't I? I sat down over here and did rocks one day, didn't I? Yeah, so I had shown you those conglomerates, breccia. Conglomerates are those rounded kind of plastic stones. Breccia are those angular nuclei kind of plastic stones. I'll show you what conglomerate looks like. No. Good. You know my thing. See this kind of soap. You can clearly see it is rounded. है ना? You can clearly see there are no sharp edges over here. Okay, but if I go for Breccia, you can clearly see it is a little pointed, right? That is the difference between the conglomerate and the this. So we will go with shale being the smallest grain, followed by siltstone, followed by sandstone, and then by conglomerate. That is going to be your option. Okay, वो आपका order होगा. This one. Shale, siltstone, sandstone, and then conglomerate. Okay. The Faroe is a group of islands lying in the Atlantic Ocean between Scotland and Iceland. This island group is known as Island of Sheep, Island of Goats, Island of Cows, Island of Buffaloes. Famous है ये, बहुत famous जगह है. Sheep, very good. The name itself, Faroe, comes from some Nordic language, I think. It comes from there. It is called as the island of sheep. Sheep is a primary thing there. उनके यहाँ पे कोई phrase होती है saying कि wool is gold or something like that. You know, so clearly the largest amount of it is because, you know, somebody, I don't remember who came in now over there, but they saw that there were so many sheep on the island. Maybe Vikings came in there one day and they saw that there were a lot of sheep on the island, and that is why they call the island as the island of sheep, and that is where the name comes from. Faroe, the name actually comes from some language in which you call sheep similar to that. Yeah, island of sheep. Okay. Tuaregs, pastoral nomad living in the deserts of Kalahari, Sahara, Arabia, Patagonia. Sahara, Tuaregs from Sahara. Very good. How do you know this? I'm sorry, I said what? Okay. Oh, this is also good. Okay, match list one is the region with the list two, which is a characteristic vegetation. And once again, I told you, right? They'll ask you to match these vegetations and regions and stuff like that. So answer the code. You have selvas, savannas, tundras, and monsoon lands. And you have tropophytes, mosses and lichens, epiphytes, and grasses and trees. हाँ जी बोलिए, किसके साथ क्या match करेंगे? Selvas is Savanna is grasses and trees. Very good. Savanna has a typical safari kind climate. So you will get grasses, fall grasses, and very few trees in between, far in between. So that is savanna. You know, monsoon, you should know. What will you get over there? No? Okay. Tundra. Tundra, what do you get in tundra? Mosses and lichens. Absolutely. What are the vegetation can grow in tundra? It will all be mosses and lichens. Okay. So you're looking at mosses and lichens. Do you still have the answer? B4 and C2. I am not even looking at the question correct. B4, C2. You can also have the A option over there. Sorry, A1 option. Now, selvas, where will you find selvas? Sorry? Very good. Selvas are epiphytes. You are looking at Amazonian rainforests. You're looking at Amazonian rainforests. They are famously called as selvas. Okay, Amazonian rainforest को famously selvas बुलाते हैं local language में. हाँ, epiphytes are usually aerial roots. So what happens is that since it's a very dense forest, right, and the light will not penetrate very much into it's a very dense, so clearly light doesn't penetrate. So what these epiphytes do is, since they do not get light beneath on the soil, they will try to be on the trunks and leaves of other trees and stuff like that. That is essentially what you call epiphytes. But it is not a parasite. It is not a parasite. It is just using the tree or the leaves as a base. What? Mangroves have a different kind of aerated roots. Epiphytes are usually pretty small. Mangroves are like huge trees. Yeah. Epiphytes are smaller usually. They are much smaller. Yeah, yeah. Epiphytes. I'll show you what epiphytes look like. It is not a parasite. Huh? See these. Can you see these? They're just growing on trunks of trees and stuff like that. Yeah, because they just want that sunlight. So they will go wherever they will. That is an adaptation for the plant. They will simply reach out in places wherever sunlight is available. So, and since sunlight does not penetrate up to the ground, clearly it will try to be in places above the trees. So those are epiphytes, famously epiphytes. Okay. And tropophytes are those where you have, so monsoons will have tropophytes because we have a proper summer season and a proper winter season. And clearly there is a huge variation between the temperatures. So the trees that can survive very hot seasons as well as cold seasons are usually called as tropophytes. Pneumato, how do you spell that? Pneuema, pneumatophores. Oh, breathing because they are in waterlogged conditions, same as mangroves. Because they are in waterlogged conditions, and that will be an absence of oxygen. So clearly, if you need more oxygen, you are going to go for okay, pneumatophores. Good, I did not know the word. Oh, of course, pneumatophores, pneumato air. No problem. जी बोलिए क्या आना चाहिए selvas Brazilian rainforests are going to be epiphytes, savannas are going to be grasses and trees, tundra because it neither has the soil nor the climate for it, so clearly mosses and lichens, and monsoon land is going to be tropophytes where the trees vary between very hot summers and very pretty cold winters. Okay, that those are tropophytes. So what is my option going to be? Four, no, not four, 3 4 1, no, 2 1, 3 4 2 1, 3 4 2 1. D. Option D. Which of the following is are the most likely cause for the sheet flood found in western part of Rajasthan? Sheet floods jab aate hain, when Rajasthan does get sheet flooding, why does it happen? Because of scanty rainfall, sudden high intensity rain, loose sandy soil with scanty vegetation. 2 and 3, absolutely. What is sheet flooding? Where you get a good amount of rainfall, a really good amount of rainfall, but normally, since the soil is sandy or something, it will not absorb that rainfall. Okay, so clearly the surface runoff is going to be greater now. All right, and this is only possible with loose sandy soil with scanty vegetation. If there was vegetation, it would hold on to the water. Okay, and it will hold on to the soil also because it is sandy soil. It is aerated enough. It will not hold water. The water will definitely not penetrate. That is not what the ground is used to generally. Okay, so that is why you will get sheet flooding, and that can be very very severe. That can cause really severe erosion. Okay, so we are looking at options 2 and 3. Scanty rainfall does not lead to sheet flooding. Sheet flooding meaning huge entire areas are washed off by the rainwater, which runs off as surface water. That is what you're talking of when you talk of sheet floods. Okay. This is done. Hydrolysis. Physics is such a nice subject now. हो गया हाँ we are done. कहाँ है कोई टीचर है यहाँ पे? We'll do another. few questions from other side, and then if there is a certain topic that you want an explanation for, I can do that also. No? हाँ जी बोलिए ना. For geography, for geography. Sorry? In physical geography, you need to study the Earth and universe. You are looking for that one question, at least from that side. Very simple question, like, arrange the planets in a certain order or something like that. Based on density, mass, or size, arrange, especially terrestrial planets. That is one type of question that they ask you. Usually, they question you about Big Bang theory or theories for origin of the solar system. That is one thing that they ask. In very recent years, I've not seen UPSC ask you about stars or proximity to stars, or which star is closer or something. But they'll ask you about Venus, the brightness and hotness of Venus. That is one question they love asking you about. और क्या पूछा है उन्होंने recently? Oh no, Venus. Because of the atmosphere, it contains 95% carbon. So the carbon it's a greenhouse gas, so it will retain all the heat that is Mars. Red planet is Mars. Venus is the hottest as well as the brightest one. So it is the brightest object after the moon in the night sky because it reflects the sunlight because of the clouds made with sulfuric acid. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, landforms is an important thing. So you have erosional and depositional landforms formed by the running water or rivers, which we call fluvial landforms. Then the ones formed by wind, which we call aeolian landforms. The ones formed by glaciers, which is glaciated topography. Then there is one which is specifically made by groundwater in limestone or chalk that we call as karst topography. And then the ones with the coastal sea waves and currents and all, those landforms. So those landforms are important. They'll definitely question you. They ask you whether this is erosional, whether this is depositional, or something like that. That they definitely do. World geography, like I told you, right? They'll question you on Sahara Desert. Sahara Desert has 2, 3 names in different parts. Like in the northern part, it's called something else. Southern part is something else. Eastern, western part is something else. So they'll ask you the names of those regions. They'll ask you these people, tribes and people, that Tuaregs from Sahara, Samis from Lapland, or you will get these people from West Africa, Hausa from West Africa, somebody from East Masai from East Africa. So you should know these people. That is something that you know. Another famous thing that they like ask you is rivers. Back when Ukraine and Russia war was being fought, they loved asking you on that rivers that went into the Black Sea. That was one thing that Russia was not arguing about, and that was the only question they asked you at that time. That how many rivers go into the Black Sea? Which of these rivers go into the Black Sea? So that is one thing that you were talking about. What other things do they ask you? I told you, right? Broadleaf temperate forest, where will you find them? China or USA, or where will you not find them among 4 options? So something like that. That's world geography. What else do they ask you in world geography? Since a long time, they've not been asking you about minerals or mineral wealth in world geography. That is not what they're doing. They're questioning you about mountains. They're questioning you about rivers. What else do they usually question you in world geography? Climates. They are also looking into treaties now, like the one that we did on biosafety protocol on CBD, conservation of biodiversity. Yeah, they are looking into treaties also like that. Ramsar sites का वो global geography से question मिलाकर बनाते हैं. They'll sometimes ask you what a Ramsar site is, and they'll ask you which is the recent one in India. Mostly they're just asking you the recent ones in India, so not such a big deal. What else in world geography are they asking you? I don't think they'll ask you about the Hormuz Strait anymore because it is too much debated. Hormuz Strait, the one that connects Persian Gulf with the Gulf. What else? In physical geography, you need to know about rocks, and you need to know about earthquakes, volcanoes, mountain building processes, and continent building processes and stuff like that. Yes. Those are very important. There is a sector for it. We give you that sector. No? Chief ministers are great leaders. So you know the discontinuities from the top to the bottom. Conrad in the crust, then Morovicic in the between the crust and the mantle. Then within the mantle you will find the Repeti. Then between the mantle and the core you will find Gutenberg. And then in between the core you will find the Levin discontinuity. So chief ministers are great leaders. That's the setup. What else do they ask you? They ask you about earthquake waves, P waves, S waves, the distinction between them, the shadow zones. That is one favorite question of theirs. Usually, a very long time ago, they once questioned you on the Richter scale. हाँ, Richter scale पे question किया था उन्होंने. What else do they prefer? And cyclones and all, that is also physical geography. That will also be physical geography. All of atmosphere, atmospheric layers, occurrences within the atmospheric layer, even, kind of weather systems that we say, cyclones, anticyclones, clouds, local winds, everything is included in climatology. So that will also be physical geography. And then oceanography, ocean currents, tides, generally temperature and salinity of this, that is something they question. ओशंस के ऊपर वो डेफिनेटली, टाइड्स के ऊपर वो डेफिनेटली, इसके ऊपर एक डेफिनेटली क्वेश्चन पूछते हैं आपको वार्म एंड कोल्ड ओशन करंट्स पे. एंड लोकल विंड्स पे यूजुअली एक क्वेश्चन पूछते हैं. और टाइड्स के ऊपर कभी कभी पूछते हैं. इट इज नॉर्मल टू आस्क अबाउट टाइड्स. Recently they haven't asked, but if you're asking about tides on a global scale, you also need to know about tides on India. So you should know that Gulf of Kutch has the highest tides. So the height is pretty big, like 10 to 12 meters is a big height for a tide. Okay. Gulf of Khambat will have a little lesser amount of tide, and Sundarbans even lesser. So you need to remember that. That is, and India पे then questions आते हैं. Indian rivers पे questions पूछते हैं. ये mountain passes is something they usually ask you. और क्या पूछते हैं वो आपको इंडिया में? ये ऐसी चीजें. You know, like कर्नाटका plateau ये दो parts है. तो which is which? हाँ, they'll question you on physiography, or they'll ask you which is the highest peak in the Aravallis, or the highest peak in the Madhya Bharat, or the highest peak in southern India, like you told me, Anaimudi, right? Anamudi. So that is going to be a standard question. Like we usually go with Eastern Western Ghats meet in Nilgiri, and that is that. But then they'll go even further and ask you which is the tallest peak over here, or the tallest peak in Eastern Ghats. So NCRT mentions Mahendragiri, but I don't think it makes the cut. I think Chindagada or something is the name of the peak in the Eastern Ghats, or something Aram Kondu. कुछ तो ऐसा नाम है. I shall see it. I'll recognize the name. I don't know the name right now. So we are looking at that kind of a question then mostly. Rivers is their favorite. They'll definitely question you on rivers. उन्होंने ब्रह्मपुत्र पे बहुत दिनों में क्वेश्चन नहीं पूछे, वरना उनको बहुत अच्छा लगता है. एक तरफ ब्रह्मपुत्र के ट्रिब्यूटरीज, दूसरी तरफ इंडस के, एंड वो इंडस के वो पंचनाद वाले ट्रिब्यूटरीज नहीं पूछ रहे आपको. वो नहीं, लेसर नोन ट्रिब्यूटरीज है, शोक एंड ऑल दैट. दे आर मोर इंटरेस्टेड इन दोस. हाँ, so you will have to know those tributaries. This is a tributary from there. What else do you नहीं है तो मैं दूसरा क्वेश्चन पेपर निकाल देती हूँ. हमने 51 से शुरू करना चाहिए था. हाँ जी, वही वाला करते हैं. Both statements are individually true, or statement 2 is the correct explanation. Tell which is the correct statement over here. Grand banks are one of the major fishing grounds of the world due to presence of vast continental shelves, and planktons grow in the shallow waters. ये दो statements है. Veracity बताइए इसका कितना सही है कितना गलत है. ये रहे ग्रैंड बैंक्स यहाँ पे. This is the place that we are talking about, okay? When we say Grand Banks, ये न्यूफाउंडलैंड है ना यहाँ पे, तो उसके बाजू में जो एरिया है that is famously called as Grand Banks, okay? यहाँ पे क्या होता है ना, you will get this Gulf Stream over here, and ऊपर से वो Labrador current आता है, right? So you're talking of ये वाला, तो ये mixing of cold and warm currents हो जाता है. And also यहाँ पर continental shelf बहुत बड़ा है, wide है and बड़ा है. इतना बड़ा नहीं है, लेकिन wide है and बड़ा है, okay? Continental shelf. So when the continental shelf is wider and greater, clearly sunlight can penetrate easily, है ना? क्योंकि continental shelves माने shallow seas. Now you're talking about shallow seas. So clearly sunlight can penetrate. तो वहाँ पे planktons उगते हैं. Whether they are phytoplanktons, whether they are they can be fish or animals, or they can be plants. But planktons definitely grow over here. Okay. दोनों के लिए आपको सनलाइट चाहिए. So planktons grow over here, and that is why fish will come over here. Okay, to eat those planktons, the smaller fish come in, and to eat the smaller fish, the larger fish come in. So this becomes one of the biggest, uh, fishing grounds in the world. Okay. Another reason for this is also because usually where there's a mixing of cold and warm currents, the cold water usually brings in nutrients. Okay. So those nutrients are also important for the fish to eat, and that is also another reason why the smaller fish will gather over here. Planktons will grow better. That is just the reason that planktons grow better with either the nutrients or the wide continental shelf. Okay. So your options are both. Both are correct, and two explains one. Okay. The second statement explains the first statement. Amoeba is not my thing. Amoeba is not my thing, na, I said. No, neither is Jahandar Shah. PITS India Act also not. This is something else. ये वाला बताइए. Which of the following statements is are correct? The tropical cyclones of China Sea are called typhoons. The tropical cyclones of West Indies are called tornadoes. The tropical cyclones of Australia are called willy willies. And formation of an anticyclone results in a stormy weather condition. We did this yesterday or day before yesterday. Tropical cyclones of China Sea are called typhoons. Yeah. In China and Japan, these are famously called as typhoons. Okay. Tropical cyclones of West Indies are tornadoes. No, Caribbean में tropical cyclones को क्या बुलाते हैं? Hurricanes, not tornadoes. Tornadoes are the ones that run on land in the USA. Okay, they are continental. Tornadoes are pretty continental. They don't have to be formed on the sea. They are not a type of a tropical cyclone that is formed in the sea and dissipates on land. Tornadoes just are very happy to run itself on land. Okay, they are formed on the land, they run on the land, they dissipate on land. So that is not what tornadoes are. We will not go with this answer. The tropical cyclones of Australia are called willy willies. Yes, yes. And the formation of an anticyclone results in a stormy weather condition. No, anticyclones are very stable. There is subsiding air from above, so clearly no storms can be formed, and everything becomes very calm and rainless and sort of a thing. Okay, so anticyclones are in fact very depressing. You know, like those, if the Dementors ever descended on Earth, it would be something like that. Okay, so no, anticyclones do not form a calm weather condition. Yeah, three only, 1 and 3. है ना option? हाँ है ना, 1 and 3. आसियान नहीं है, कौन सा कंट्री नहीं है, ऐसा नहीं करेगी. ये वाला बताइए, ये लास्ट क्वेश्चन होने दीजिए. Rotterdam of Netherlands is largely famous for textiles, dairy, shipbuilding industry or paper industry. Shipbuilding के लिए famous है. Rotterdam is it is one of the busiest ports in Europe. Rotterdam of Netherlands is one of the busiest port. यहाँ पे lie करता है ना. It is over here, right? We are talking of this over here. So it is really one of the busiest ports. वहाँ पर continental shelf भी बड़ा है. This is famously that Dogger Bank, right? So the continental shelf, and it has a traditional shipbuilding industry. Rotterdam used to have a traditional shipbuilding industry. ये वाला बताइए. Which one of the following is the correct sequence of economic sectors in terms of their contribution to the GDP of India in decreasing order? So you have to name the sector that contributes the maximum to the GDP of India, followed by the ones that are giving lesser and lesser contribution. That is service industry is going to be the one. Service industry money what? Tertiary sector, right? You're saying ki IT and all that sort of thing. IT, hospitality, that is just service industry. Even airports and all, air services and all. It's a service, right, that you're being provided for transportation. That is another this. So education also happens in the service sector. So clearly that is making more money. You're saying service sector first, followed by the industrial sector. You are talking of manufacturing and stuff like that. And lastly, agriculture. Okay. So we are going with service, industry, then agriculture. We'll stop here, people.